Hi Prep 2, I wish your day is fine. Today we're gonna start our novel for this term, and as you can see from the cover, its title is David Copperfield. And I'm sure you can guess what's that name. Yes, it's the name of the hero of our novel, or this is the main character in all the chapters. But first, we can see something else. Here's another name on the cover. Yes, Charles Dickens. And we can guess that Charles Dickens is the author or the writer of this novel. And by the way, he's one of the most important and famous English writers. And one of his famous sayings about this novel, one day he said, "Of all my books, I like this the best. I have in my heart of hearts a favorite child, and his name is David Copperfield." And this is a perfect chance to start telling you about our hero, David Copperfield. But first, we need to introduce some other characters we will meet with David. First, we said that David is our hero, so what about his parents? His father is dead before his birth, and we have here his mother, Mrs. Clara Copperfield. We will meet another important character for David and for his mother. Her name is Biggity. She is David's servant and housekeeper. She was a perfect lady in David's life. She had one brother. His name is Mr. Daniel Biggity, who adopted two orphans, Ham Biggity and Emily Biggity. And we will meet another important character. Her name is Miss Betsy Trotwood. Miss Betsy Trotwood. She's David's father's aunt, and she's the richest and the most important person in David's family. We will meet another two names in this chapter, but I won't tell you who they are now. Their names are Mr. Murdstone and Miss Murdstone, but I will not tell you who are they right now. And now we are ready to start our first chapter events. Are you ready? David Copperfield was named after his father because his father died 6 months before he was born, and he never saw his father, which was very hard for David and his mother, who found herself a poor, sad, lonely young mother with a new baby and no husband. One day, Miss Betsy Trotwood, by the way, she was the richest and the most important person in David's family. She was his father's aunt, but she didn't visit him before that or since he got married, because she saw that his marriage to a young woman like Mrs. Clara was a very big mistake. But one day, just before David's birth, there was a sudden visit from Miss Betsy Trotwood to David's house after years of absence. And she was so serious and asked Mrs. Clara about her life with her husband in the past and how young she is. But when they started talking about the baby, it was a different conversation. When Mrs. Clara told Miss Betsy that the baby may be a boy, Miss Betsy Trotwood said to her, "Of course it will be a she. Of course it will be a girl." And she started to tell her how she would take care of her and how would she send her to perfect schools and how she would make the baby girl's life perfect. But suddenly, Mrs. Clara felt worse. She needed a doctor, and when the doctor came and the baby finally was born, and just when the doctor told Miss Betsy that the baby was a boy, she was shocked. She said nothing, but she walked out of the house and she never came back. When David was eight, everything was different. His mother often went out with a gentleman called Mr. Murdstone. He liked her, but Peggotty didn't like him. One day, David and Peggotty went to home, and then they decided to have a short holiday in her brother's house, Mr. Daniel, do you remember? Who was a kind man with two orphans. One of them are Ham, and he's a young man with a gentle smile, and Emily, who was a very beautiful girl. David spent there a wonderful happy 2 weeks, playing and having fun with Ham and Emily, and he was very sad when he left them. But on his way with Peggotty to his house, it wasn't great at all. Peggotty started to talk about something bad for David. She said to him, I need to tell you some news. I know that this will be bad news for you, but I need to tell you that your mother has married Mr. Murdstone, and he's your stepfather now. David was shocked, and he couldn't do anything. He just went to his room, cried heavily and heavily and heavily, and his mother was next to him, while suddenly the door was opened, and Mr. Murdstone suddenly came in. Mrs. Clara left the room at once when Mr. Murdstone looked at her. And Mr. Murdstone came close to David and told him the worst sentence for David in his life. He told him that sentence: David, do you know what I'll do if you don't obey me? I'll beat you like a dog. David was shocked. He hated Mr. Murdstone for being a bad man with him and his mother. And he said, maybe if he said to me a better word, my life was better than my life now. And then after some weeks, there was a new visitor. A new visitor came to David's house. One evening, Mrs. Murdstone arrived. I didn't tell you this name before. Do you remember when I told you that there are two names that we will mention? Yes, we said Mr. Murdstone, he's David's stepfather, or Mrs. Clara's new husband, and Miss Murdstone, she's Mr. Murdstone's sister. So let's come back. A new visitor came to David's house. One evening, Mrs. Murdstone arrived. She was a tall, dark lady with a very frowning, serious face. She came to help David's mother, but in fact, she intended to stay forever. And that started when suddenly they found Mrs. Murdstone. One day they were sitting on the dining table, and Miss Murdstone started to talk to Mrs. Clara. I'm here to help you to control everything. You are young, and this is a very big house, and there are a lot of servants, so I'm here just to help you. But one day, they found Mrs. Murdstone was always holding all the keys of their house and told them that she would take care of everything. And that was the first step of Mrs. Murdstone's complete control of David's house. At that point, we can say that chapter 1 is finished. But can you guess if David's life with the Murdstones will be better or worse? That's what we will know next chapter. But before we finish this video and before I leave, we just need to check if you can remember what happened in this chapter. And if you can answer these easy questions. So are you ready? We can go to some questions and you can read these questions and get a paper and try to find the answers. And if you can't, or if you want to be sure, you can open your novel book and you can read the chapter starting with page 6. So the first question here, when did David's father die? I said it while telling you the story. And number 2, who is Miss Betsy Trotwood? Number 3, why hadn't Miss Betsy Trotwood spoken to David's father since his marriage? Yeah, do you remember? Number 4, what did Miss Biggity tell David while coming back from Yarmouth? Do you remember? Was it a good news or a bad news? Number 5, what did Miss Murdstone do when she came to live at Copperfield's house? Yeah, I think she was a bad visitor. The last question here, comment. And that was a quotation from the chapter, and you need just to remember who said this quotation to whom, and to tell us when did it happen, or like that. If you don't obey me, I'll beat you like a dog. Do you remember this sentence? Do you remember this quotation? This bad sentence for David? So at this point, we talked about all the characters in this chapter, and we talked about everything happened in this chapter, and we had some questions to check if you can remember the events or not, and you can read the chapter starting from page 6. And at this point I can say that this video is finished. I wish everything is clear for you. Next time, wait for me, and I'm waiting for you.